Just a day before my wedding, I am faced with an unspeakable secret I promised a hunter to hand over one of my wolf pack members. Chapter 26, Confessions. Get his scent off, was the only thought that ran through my mind as I rushed back towards the pack house. My palm was healing and the bruises on my arms were already disappearing, but the bloodstain on my shirt and Jake's human scent on my arms were still very pungent. While I may not be able to sense Jake's smell on me, I knew for a fact that any wolf would be able to smell another human scent even if Jake just touched me. Thane, on the other hand, would be able to sniff someone else's scent on me from a mile away. Luckily no one returned from helping set up the wedding, so I was all clear in the pack house as I practically sprinted up the steps and stripped my clothes from my body and threw them into the washer with a myriad of scented fabric softeners to help cover Jake's scent. I hopped in the shower and after scrubbing my body with a few different soaps and body wash, I let the warm water wash over me as I closed my eyes and contemplated everything that happened. I couldn't possibly sedate her, Werewolf, and give him or her over to Jake, nor could I allow a full-on war between the hunters and the pack. Even if Thane and his pack could take on the hunters, there would be casualties because a silver bullet would instantly kill any wolf. I can't have anyone being hurt or, God forbid, dying on my hands. Not Thane and not any other wolf. But the last thing I could do is tell Thane because he would hate me for saying I would take a wolf to Jake. Heck, I hate myself for saying it despite not meaning a word of it. There was no way around this and I knew I had to tell Thane just in case Jake decided to attack at any moment. But how would I even approach the topic? I stepped out of the shower and quickly got changed with a heavy heart and the weight of the situation on my shoulders. If I were to tell Thane about all of this, besides him hating me, I knew he would call off the wedding to prepare for battle or construct some plan, and I couldn't have that. Not for my own selfish reasons, but because I knew it was important to him and it would crush him to cancel it after he's been patiently waiting for me. It was then that I decided I would do what I originally planned when I told Jake I would bring him the wolf. I'd go to the forest alone to meet Jake and then I would mind link Thane before Jake could realize what was happening. That way Jake would be ambushed and no wolves would be harmed. If I tell Thane before, I would risk not only the mistrust but whoever is spying for Jake could be in the pack and figure out I tattled. Thane would mark me by then so he would be able to mind link me and vice versa. Therefore I could act like I was going to Jake alone when in reality I would mind link Thane before I get to Jake. That way he could attack Jake from behind and surprise him. If Jake however captures me, my scent would be more powerful to Thane after mating, so he would be able to track me down. Seemed simple enough. I thought to myself as I tucked the syringe of the sedative in a cabinet in the bathroom where I was sure Thane wouldn't find it. It was already approaching night by the time I devised my plan and I knew Thane would be back soon. I couldn't face him and knew he would be able to read me like a book. So I laid down to sleep and hoped that the darkness would take me, but it was to no avail as I twist and turn with uneasiness. Long after the sun settled beyond the mountains from the pack house view, Thane quietly walked into the room, but I kept my eyes shut and pretended to be asleep. I couldn't lie to him and I couldn't hurt him either. He walked over to my side of the bed and placed a gentle kiss on my forehead. "Good night, sweetheart." It broke my heart that I couldn't even talk to him, but I didn't want to ruin the wedding for him. I heard Thane in the shower, and not long after he joined me in the bed and pulled me flush against him and wrapped his arm around me. I couldn't help but snuggle into him despite knowing that I was basically betraying him and the pack. The next morning I woke up extremely early to avoid Thane as much as possible even though tomorrow, which both excited and made me nervous. Luckily I actually had somewhere to be today, so it wasn't suspicious of me leaving the house. However, by the time I had a bathe and got changed, Thane was already awake and sitting in bed with a huge grin on his face. "Good morning, sweetheart," he greeted cheerfully. As I looked at his happy expression, I couldn't help but feel the guilt eating at me for keeping the Jake situation from him. "Good morning." I tried to give him my best smile but was failing miserably. "I'm going to Caroline's house. He'll be back in a few." I shot at him as I walked towards the door. "Wait." He called me back, but I was already headed towards the door before he got up and sprinted after me. "Wait up, would you?" He grabbed onto my arms and spun me to face him. "What's the rush?" I promised her he'll be there soon." I stumbled over my words. He gave me a curious expression, And what are going to do? Don't you have to get your dress? Yes. I do, and Shess going with me to make sure it fits properly. I nervously laughed out and attempted to turn back towards the steps. Wait, where's my goodbye kiss? He raised an eyebrow at me. I probably wouldn't see you again until tomorrow night. Why not? I asked in surprise. He grinned. I know you're going to miss me, sweetheart, but according to human tradition, the groom isn't allowed to see his bride the night before the wedding or before she walks down the aisle on the wedding day, and I'm sure we're both going to be busy today. Right. I mumbled but internally sighed in relief. I quickly went on my tiptoes to reach the less height, grabbed his face between my palms and planted a kiss on his lips which I could feel him smile into. Before I could pull away, Thane pulled my left hand into his view and glanced at the now fading pink scar that remained after Jake cut me yesterday. What's this? He asked in concern. Nothing. I answered quickly and yanked my hand away from his, but he gave me a doubtful look. I just accidentally sliced it open trying to cut up some cold turkey for his sandwich yesterday. I lied between my teeth. That was believable, right? I didn't know my way around the kitchen at all, so it wasn't that far-fetched. Then I grew from concern to amusement. He brought my hand back to his face and placed a gentle kiss on the scar. You should have called me and I would have taken care of you. It was just a scratch. I shrugged it off. Now I got to go. See you later, sweetheart, bye. I walked away faster than you could say werewolf. I rushed into the Jeep, which is basically my own now since I drive it around most of the time, and headed towards Caroline and the house. Just as I pulled up to their house and was walking towards the front door, Bo walked out of the house and was probably on his way to training. Well, if it isn't the bride herself, Bo greeted with a smile. Hiding from your groom already? I couldn't help but laugh. Something like that. By Bo. He left in amusement without knowing that he actually hit the nail on the head. Caroline met me by the front door with a smirk. Ready to get your man a gift. I playfully rolled my eyes at her. Once you don't poison me. She closed the door behind me and clutched her chest in fake hurt. Are you questioning my skills? Never. I mumbled as I eyed the machine that sat on her coffee table. Okay, just sit down on one of the chair. I'm going to grab some alcohol. I don't think. Trust me. You'll need it. She called back. I settled into the chair and put my right hand on the high table so that she would be able to see what Shess doing. Caroline came back into the living room with a bottle of some hard liquor and handed it over to me. Is it really going to hurt that bad? I asked warily. She just gave me an assuring smile. Don't worry, with your healing powers it shouldn't hurt too badly, but it only means I'm going to have to go over the image a few times for the ink to really get in. Maybe this was such a good idea. I shook my head and proceeded to raise from the chair. Caroline quickly grabbed my right hand and pulled me back into my chair and wiped my inner wrist with a piece of cotton soaked in alcohol. It may hurt now, but just think of the look on Nana's face. And she was right. A few days ago I decided to get it to represent Nana's importance in my life, because what else do you get a guy who had everything he wanted and was a werewolf? You have done this before, right? I asked as she sketched out the image on my wrist. For the 100th time, yes. I used to do it on my pack member's back before I was a rogue and was surprisingly pretty good at it. I did try it at Bo once, but he totally flipped at the sight of the needle. She giggled. And you do think they cheers the Delta? Okay then. Let's get this over with. I took a deep breath as we finalized the image she was about to turn to me. So are you ready for tomorrow? She asked as the needle pierced my skin, and I just brought the bottle to my lips and took a swing at it. Admittedly, it did sort of help with both the pain of a tattoo and the guilt of keeping things from Thane, though the trailing fire that burnt down my throat was horrific. I am, though it might add nervous considering I've never experienced this type of ceremony before. Thane mentioned that it was kind of like a ritual with the werewolf part of things, but I have no idea what he meant. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nobel, hearts out saints your unfailing shoots enthusiasm. Well, I wouldn't be able to help enlighten you considering this is the first wedding I'll ever be attending. Would you marry Bo? I asked because it was a rare thing for wolves to do, but I believe it was a special occasion to bind to people even if they are half or for fully human. In a heartbeat, she smiled. Yes, my mate. And I would make him buy me a big rock just for the heck of it. I accidentally laughed and shook my hand in the process, and the needle slightly pressed a bit deeper into me. Holy chicken nuggets. I howled in pain. Caroline stopped the needle as I took a big gulp from the bottle of amber liquid. Wow, take it easy there, Luna. Don't want to have a hangover for your wedding now, do you? She grabbed the bottle from my hand and set it on the coffee table. Now, are you okay? I took a deep breath and tried to get my anguish under control. Yeah. I'm fine. Good. Because we have a little while again to go. Oh geez. I groaned. Now what I truly meant about if you are ready for tomorrow is if you're ready for what happens after the wedding. She gave me a mischievous smile. The reception. I faked bewilderment. After that CDO. I thought about it for a bit before I answered her. To be fair, I've been trying to convince Thane to mark me for a while now. She almost choked on air as she pulled the needle away from my hand and started coughing in a fit. That was actually the last thing I expected you to say. Honestly, I thought you were a virgin. I am. I rolled my eyes. Doesn't mean I don't want to be with my mate. She continued what she was doing as she nodded. You're right. I just assumed you were the prudish type. She shrugged, but I knew she was kidding. If you weren't holding a needle to my hand, I would pushed you already. I threatened. The one with the machine holds the power memory. I could draw my face on here if I wanted to. She winked my way, disregarding her threat. I wondered aloud what I've been meaning to ask someone. Does it hurt? Of course it does. Losing your virginity hurts like a bitch, she expressed colorfully. I covered one of my ear with my unoccupied hand. Geez, not like Caroline. I meant getting marked. She stopped the needle for about the 100th time during this conversation, and we both laughed at what she said. Oh no, that doesn't hurt at all. It's more pleasure than pain, she explained after a fit of giggles, but she placed a hand over my left. Trust me, when it happens you will know it feels. Don't question it. Just enjoy the moment because it's the most sacred bond for a werewolf. I nodded at what she said as she continued on with my tattoo. And that was how the next hour or so went by, with silly conversations about my wedding night and Caroline nearly killing me from pain with her tattoo needle. By the time we were done, it was already healing pretty quickly, but Caroline insisted that I didn't get it wet and to keep it moisturized. It turned out better than I thought it would, and I cowled at wait to show Thane, but then again, I maybe can wait since I cowled and face him again today. Since having quite a bit to drink, I was drunk, but still I had Caroline drive me over to Nina's shop to pick up my wedding dress. Within no time Nina had me changed into the white number, and it fitted perfectly. Without delay she carefully bagged the dress in a proper dress bag and helped me store it in the Jeep before Caroline drove me back to the pack house. Upon arriving I prayed that Thane was here so there wouldn't be any more strange encounters with him. But not to my luck. As we walked into the house, there he stood in all his 6 foot for handsome glory. Hey beautiful. He walked over to greet me, but I was carrying the dress so I quickly dodged him and called back. You can't see the dress. In an excuse to avoid him. Much to my dismay he followed me up the flights of stairs and waited for me in our living room while I stored the dress in our room. When I saw him standing waiting for me I couldn't help but ask. Aren't you supposed to be gone by now? Trying to get rid of me already, are you? He raised an eyebrow at me. I just shrugged and walked towards the patio area on our floor that looked out the backyard, just as the one in our room did. No, I just thought you had more important things to do. I shrugged and leaned on the railing. Thane placed his hands on either side of me and trapped me between his body and the railing. Unconsciously, my body tensed at our position and forced myself to relax before I blabbered everything to him. He turned me around to face his worried expression but placed his hands back on the railing. What's going on? I could see his eyes running on every inch of my face trying to read me, and surprisingly it looked like he came up empty-handed. It's nothing. I tried and shook my head. He argued back. No, it's something. Come on, Emery. You can tell me what's wrong. It's nothing, I swear. I tried to give him a little smile to ease his tension, but he was having none of it. Please, he begged. I didn't know what to say him beside the truth, but I couldn't tell him, and his worried expression broke me. I wrapped my arms around his torso and held him to me, as close as humanly possible, and he immediately pulled me into his warmth. We just stood there in silence for what seemed like hours, but was in actuality a brief moment, and as the late evening sun scattered its beautiful rays around us, Thane whispered comforting words to me. Whatever it is, well, get through it. You just have to trust me and tell me what's wrong so that I can fix it. He promised. I whispered to him. He breathed me in and asked, "Is it the wedding? Are you getting cold feet?" I immediately withdrew from him so that I could see his face, and I regretted doing that because the only thing I saw was anguish, hurt and sorrow, and that look broke me into so many pieces that I didn't know how I would recover. The words got lodged in my throat and I didn't know how to say what I wanted to, and he took my silence the wrong way and removed his hands from around me. "That's it, isn't it? You aren't ready," he went on. "I'm sorry if I rushed you into this, Emery. I should have." I asked in bewilderment. "Where would you ever get such a thought, Thane? I love you and I couldn't have asked for a better mate. Heck, I didn't even ask for one and was given the best one ever. I've also literally been trying to seduce you for the past month, and now that we're getting married, cold feet definitely isn't stopping me." After my short tremble, Thane just stared at me with wide eyes and his mouth slightly open in shock. I glanced at him curiously. "What? I didn't say anything wrong, did I?" Why, you just said." He trailed off stumbling, but before he could finish his sentence, he pulled me into his arms and crashed his lips against mine in the most passionate kiss we've ever shared. I wrapped my arms around his neck and melted into his embrace. I opened my mouth and granted him entrance as we both battled for dominance over the kiss. Eventually I gave in and he took over, and I just fell into the passionate spiral. After a few minutes we both pulled away to catch our breath as we rested our foreheads against each other's and stood in absolute bliss. "What was that for?" I asked when I found my voice. "I love you," was his only words as he pecked my lips and gave me a big, toothy grin. Then it struck me like a bolt of lightning. I told him I love him. "I said that?" I asked in amazement. "You did." He couldn't help his enjoyment. "You don't have to say it again if you don't, but I'm glad you did." He cut me off. "No, I meant it, Thane. All 3 words and all it letters. I love you," I declared with a huge smile plastered on my face. I could get accustomed to hearing that. "Well, that's good considering you have to live with it. And what a happy life that would be." He smirked playfully at me. "But this right here is the best moment of my life." "Then what would tomorrow be?" I curiously asked him. He just shrugged. "Second best." Then his eyes furrowed in confusion. "That still doesn't explain what you were so worried about." And my impending doom was brought back into the conversation. "It's nothing to worry about right now. If it had you so withdrawn, then it's something to worry about to me. Thane, Emery." He countered. "Tell me, what have you so wound up?" I racked my brain for an excuse until the small black marking on my wrist gave me an answer. "I got you a gift." I trailed off as I lifted my hand to his face. "But I wasn't sure if you'd like it, and I can't exactly take it back to the store." "What is?" he was about to ask, but he would my hand around so that he would be able to see the small tattoo on my right wrist. It was a small tribal tattoo of a wolf's head howling. It wasn't anything major, but to me it depicted Thane, all of our pack. It made me feel more connected to them, all in a metaphoric way. Then S mouth opened and closed a few times, and he seemed to be at a loss for words. "Do you like it? It's kind of your wedding present, since I didn't know exactly what else to get you." I bit my lip in nervousness from his lack of a response. "You got that for me," he managed to whisper out. I nodded my head. I swear he was almost brought to tears, and I was worried I did something wrong when we covered his face, but when he removed his hands from his face, he looked at me with pure love and adoration, and I was completely enamored by him. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful." He gently took hold of my wrist and brought it to his lips and kissed right above where the tattoo sat. "Do you like it?" I hesitantly asked. He looked at me with reverence. "I love it, and I love you." Chapter 27, I Love You Always Stay. I pleaded with Thane as he got off the bed where he was sitting next to me. He gave me a cheeky smile. I've got to go, love. I grabbed his hand and didn't let go as he tried to leave. No, what you need to do is stay here in bed with me. It's almost 12. I need to go. He tried to pull his hand away without effort. I got on my knees and crawled over to the edge of the bed, where he stood so we were of the same height. We don't need to follow traditions, Thane. You're only doing this because I'm human and I honestly don't care. But I do. I pouted at him and he rubbed the pad of his thumb on my lower lip. I want to do this right between us and ensure you get the full human experience. I'm not just human, Thane. I'm a werewolf as much as you are, even if not in the literal sense. Trust me, love. You will appreciate tomorrow 100 times more if we do this. He grinned and kissed my head. Call it delayed gratification. Called it a waste of time. I rolled my eyes but knew he right. Can I go now? He asked without contempt. Not without my goodbye kiss. I let go of his hand only to wrap both of my arms around his neck. You're going to be the death of me. He groaned in pleasure before capturing my lips in a fierce but passionate exchange. After a brief minute he pulled away. I really should go now. I looked over at the clock and saw that it was 5 minutes till midnight. See you tomorrow. I brushed my lips against his. It'll be the one covered in fur. He pecked my lips. I laughed at that and pulled him closer and gave him a kiss. See you tomorrow, fiancé. Now get some sleep. My mom's probably going to wake you up at the crack of dawn. He chuckled as he tucked me into bed with one last kiss on my forehead before he left for the night, closing the bedroom door gently behind him. I couldn't believe how adamant he was on following human traditions and not seeing me before the wedding, even though I was okay with not following the rules. However, I did appreciate that he wanted to do this right and accept all the silly rituals involved with my human culture. He decided to stay in our home he built for us while I stayed in the pack house for the night. Though now that he left I cowed in sleep. Having him next to me for the past few months made me accustomed to his heat, comfort and security of being wrapped in his arms, and even though I knew it was for just a mere night, I twisted and turned all night trying to fall asleep. Besides Thane not being here with me, the problem with Jake also scared me. Even though I knew he was lurking around the pack house now because he might get caught, the idea that he actually found the pack scared me. I just needed him to back off and keep his promise until after the wedding, when I could trick him and get Thane to capture him. Hopefully it goes without a hitch, I thought as my mind kept troning on the danger of Jake knowing about Thane and the pack, which kept me up for most of the night until I drifted off sometime in the early hours of the morning. Rise and shine, Arling. I heard someone yell in a sing-song voice and was immediately hit with the glare of the shining sun. I gently pried my eyes open to see Anne, Bailey, Caroline, Delilah and Tate all bustling around the room with a few other pack members who were going to help with our hair and makeup. Come on, sleepyhead. We've left you to rest enough. Bailey giggled as she yanked on my hand to pull me into a sitting position. Careful there, pregnant lady. I quickly uttered and sat up so she wouldn't strain herself. She simply rolled her eyes at me. Get up, Em. Today's your day and we need to make you look spectacular. But I'm tired. I whined. Don't you mean anxious to see your mate? Delilah teased. I stuck my tongue out at her playfully but decided that I had to get out of bed, seeing as it was 12 in the afternoon. Thank goodness the wedding wasn't going to take place until 7 that night when the moon's out. Thane told us to let you sleep in a bit, and smiled as she came up to me. I think you would all bitten our heads off if we woke you up any earlier. I'm glad that your Ihi ran. I couldn't help but tell her because it was true. She was the only one who understood this experience. I'm happy to be here and even more ecstatic that you're my son's mate. I couldn't have asked for a better daughter-in-law. She placed her hands on my own and gave it a gentle squeeze. Now go grab something to eat before you get whisked up into the make-up and hair. Words failed me as I could only give her a happy grin and walked out the room and into the kitchen, where I was met with a surprise. Then Grandma, Jane, who I haven't seen in months since she lives in Fairburn with the humans. Jane. I couldn't help how excited I was to see her as I rushed into a hug to welcome her. My beautiful girl. She smiled at me. How are you, my child? I'm good now that you're here. You really need to visit us more often. I told her. She gave me a tired look. I wish I could, but my old bones are getting to the best of me and aches every time I have to make the hour's trek through the forest. Well, I'm glad that you could make it to be here with us today. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. You are now my granddaughter as much as Tate. She spoke in honesty. Does that mean I have to call you Grandma? I joked. She placed her head above her heart. Oh gods, no. I may be old, but I don't need to be reminded. I couldn't help but laugh at her antics. Noted. Oh, and before I forget, Thane sent you something this morning. She moved aside and revealed a bouquet of wild flowers. I walked over to the freshly picked flowers and couldn't help but feel my heartstrings tug at his gesture as I picked out the card that was nestled between the myriad of flowers. To my beautiful wife, my first vow of today for the rest of our lives is to gift you with flowers every morning until the day I die. I couldn't help the large smile that graced my face because of his cheesy yet endearing words. I placed the vase near the window in the kitchen to ensure it got sufficient sunlight. I turned around to see Jane grinning at me. Now promise me that tonight you will start creating my great-grandson because I'm not getting any younger. I gasped. Jane. I scolded with a smile. After I ate some breakfast and Jane made me promise to bring her a great-grandchild as soon as possible. I took a relaxing hot shower to calm my nerves that the wedding was creating. I was excited to be wedded to Thane, but I couldn't help the butterflies in my stomach. And quickly had me in a white robe getting my hair and makeup done alongside all my bridesmaids in the living room, where we were all enjoying our girl time, which helped relax me. My makeup was a simple, natural look, whereas my hairdo was a French-styled braid, but more complicated with a few curled pieces framing my face. The hairstylist tied a piece of lace ribbon to give it some dimension. Just as she was finished ensuring their Worcester hair took place, John approached me from behind with a little box. Here's your something borrowed. She set the box down on the vanity table in front of me and opened it to reveal a hair clip that was made of some sort of metal. It had a V shape which suited my hairstyle perfectly, as it would be able to sit right above the braid. The ends looked like wings, and the rest of it was bent into various flowers with diamonds and pearls encrusting it to enhance the elegant style. The sight of it took my breath away by the vintage style, and the fact that Jane was lending it to me touched my heart. The Blackwoods really didn't miss a beat in completing human traditions. I love it, Jane. Thank you. I told her earnestly. You're welcome, my child. But consider it yours from today. She securely placed it on my hair. I turned around in my chair and protested. I can't, Jane. Yes, you can. It's my wedding present to you, and I expect you to take great care of it and pass it down to your children. She touched my cheek in affection. Take care of that. Yourself and your future husband for me is all I ask. I will. I promised her. She walked off to get dressed herself. Right after she left, and appeared with 2 small jewel boxes, one of which she opened without showing me and placed a necklace around my neck. It was a white gold necklace with a small teardrop ruby pendant that rests on my chest. Not something blue, but my something red? I asked with a smile. She nodded. It was an grandmother's, one which has been passed down from Luna to Luna every generation, and since we are the Blood Moon pack, red's more fitting than blue. It's beautiful. Thank you. I got out of my seat and hugged her. That's not all. She smiled as she handed me the second box. This one's from Thane. I crinkled my eyebrows in confusion, but gingerly took the box from her hand and opened it to reveal a pair of matching earrings for the necklace. It was 2 tiny teardrop-shaped rubies. I quickly took them out of the box and adorned them on my ears. After admiring them in the mirror, I grabbed a small gift which contained a pair of red agate cufflinks, which had a wolf engraved into the pair. Can you get this to Thane for me? I asked his mom. It would be my honor. She smiled and walked off. Bailey, Caroline, Delilah and Tate then all appeared before me, decked out in their deep, wine-red colored dresses. You all look beautiful. I gushed at them and couldn't help but hug them all. Thank you all for being here for me, I said with a heart full of joy. We wouldn't have it any other way. Tate smiled. They all dragged me into the bedroom to put me into my dress. Caroline brought the dress from where it was hanging on the door that led out to the balcony, while Bailey rummaged through a bag on the sofa and pulled out a piece of white fabric. For the bride. She handed it over to me with a wink. I held it up to realize it was none other than a wedding garter, which was made out of a piece of lace. She snickered at my shocked expression. "Thank you," I mumbled to her. "I heard that's what human brides wear." She shrugged with a knowing smirk. I rolled my eyes at her and proceeded to shimmy it onto my thigh. After that, Delilah held my dress open for me while I stepped into the beautiful white lace masterpiece. My dress was detailed to perfection and made of this crochet lace material. It was sleeveless but had two lace pieces that tied to each of my arms that made it appear as if it was an off-the-shoulder style. It hugged my body all the way to my upper thigh in the shape of an upside-down V and fell freely to the ground. Delilah helped pulled it up and Caroline laced me up from behind while Tate and Bailey were on either side of me putting the pieces of lace on arms that made it appear as if they were off-the-shoulder sleeves when in reality they were just on my arm instead of being attached to the dress. When they were all finished ensuring my dress was on me perfectly, they stepped back and admired their work. "Why, you look sexy." Caroline whistled my way. Bailey looked like she was going to explode in happiness. "Oh my God. You look absolutely, spectacularly Emery. Then S going to kill any guy who sets their eyes on you. You look fantastic. I really don't get why we wolves don't get married more often." Delilah mused. Tate pulled me into a hug. "Welcome to the family. You're perfect for my brother." "Thank you, Tate," I said to her and looked at the other girls. "Thank you all." Before I could say anything, Jane burst in with a huge smile on her face. "It's showtime." And so it was as I saw the sun starting to set through the windows. All the nervousness of the day suddenly struck me, and I took a deep breath as Jane gave me a sympathetic smile. "You look beautiful, my child, and your groom is excited to see you." She held her hand out to me, and I took it as it was her way of comfort as she led me out the door and towards my wedding. It took us only a few minutes to walk towards the clearing as it was close enough to the pack house. The girls and I all stood behind the covers of the trees and concealed from everyone in the clearing. Bailey handed me my bouquet of wildflowers filled with reds, yellows, oranges, and a variety of other flowers. The sun had already set, but I could see from our spot in the forest that the clearing was properly lighted with enough light so that we could all see. The full moon shined directly above us in all its glory with hundreds of stars glittering in the sky. The thought of having to walk out there, with everyone eyes on me as I walked down the aisle really had me freaking out. But to my relief, then Dad Carson came through the trees and appeared before us with an groomsmen, while Lucas, Bo, and the other two guys took their place besides their respectful bridesmaids to walk down the aisle. Carson approached me with a knowing smile. "May I have the honor of walking my daughter-in-law down the aisle?" I cowed and held my smile as I nodded at him. "Please. But how did you know?" "Well, for one, my dad walked down the aisle to me, and secondly, Thane ensured I asked you if you wanted me to walk you since your father isn't here," he explained. I looked at him with an appreciation. "Thank you for doing this." "You don't need to thank me, Emery. You're now my daughter and an mate. We're family," he said with such assurance that eased my nervousness but not completely. "Thank you, Carson. Even though my dad can't be with me, I'm glad that I have you here." As I said that, the music in the clearing started, and it was our cue to proceed. The girls and the groomsmen walked out one by one, starting with Delilah and ending with my maid of honor, Bailey, and then best man, Nuhias. As Bailey and her mate walked out, Carson held his hand out to me, and I looped my own hand through his while holding my bouquet in the other hand as the soft piano that was being played songs, but thankfully it was the wedding march, but instead a beautiful wedding. www. YouTube. Conwatch. Vio Taking one last deep breath, Carson led me out of the forested area and into the clearing. Even though there were hundreds of eyes on me and a decorated clearing in the middle of a forest, the only thing my eyes could see was the only wolf here, Thane. It was strange walking towards Thane in his wolf form, but it was now my normal. Months ago I would have been the one to run in the opposite direction at the sight of the beast, and now I was walking towards my destiny. My eyes were locked on to Thane's piercing red eyes, while around me, the rest of the pack sat on beautifully laid out tree trunks that served at benches, while dozens of fairy lights, lanterns, and flaming torches lighted up the nighttime. The trees above created a beautiful canopy above the altar, where Thane and the rest of the wedding party stood, which made it look like a scene straight out from a fairy tale. What I was most grateful for was the soft white carpet covered with rose petals that led down the aisle, because I was currently barefoot, since there was a part in the werewolf ritual I had to complete with no shoe on, which begins my lunar initiation. And that part was approaching as I reached closer to the altar and could spot the 4 platters that contained something from each of the elements. The 4 elements, air, water, fire and earth, all encompasses the moon goddess, and by doing this, I will be paying tribute to her, and it symbolizes me joining the pack by accepting nature's elements as a part of me. The first platter had hot coals, and from where I stood, it was burning like lava, and that represented fire. The second platter contained soil, which represented earth. The third had water, and the last one had nothing, since it represented air. However, the first woodland hurt me, because Thane explained that if I am the true Luna of the pack and the nest mate, the moon goddess will protect me from coming into harm. But if I was an imposter, I would burn. Within a matter of seconds, we reached the platters which stood right before Thane. I loosened my grip from Carson and used my hand to hold up my dress as I furiously stepped into the burning coals. There was no feeling, no burning, and definitely no pain. I stepped through the other elements with ease, and in no time, I stood before the Wolf, which overshadowed me since he was massive, a pure alpha werewolf. I handed my bouquet off to Bailey and took my place from across Thane. He looked at me with such reverence and admiration that I felt completely at ease standing before him and everyone else. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, I whispered to him in his wolf form. He winked at me in response, and I realized how much I've missed him the entire day. Carson took his place as our minister, but in reality, he was just officiating my introduction into the pack as the new Luna, since he was the old alpha. He stood behind a stone podium, which held a bowl of water and a knife sitting next to it. I knew exactly what we had to do, since I made Thane explain everything in detail to me the night before. Emery, to officially bind you to the pack, we require a blood oath between you and the alpha. So if you may, I need you to cut your palm and offer your blood into the bowl. Carson explained for the benefit of everyone. I nodded and picked up the dagger before pressing the blade to my palm and making a small incision enough to draw blood. I placed my hand over the bowl and let the drops of blood fall into the water. Next, Thane held his paw up and easily ran his canine over it and made a cut. He poured his blood into bowl, and before he could retract his paw, I quickly held it to heal him, even though his werewolf healing had already closed the wound. He made a sound of whining because he hated when I used my powers to heal him, but I barely did anything since he was already healed as well as myself. I rolled my eyes at him in amusement and turned my attention back to the bowl, which now reflected the moon as it was cast directly over the bowl, and the red wick changed its reflected appearance to make it look blood red, just how it looked the night of the ritual to the beast. It symbolizes the blood moon pack. A pack, Carson explained, and with that Thane let out a loud howl with his head bent towards the moon in acceptance of me joining the pack as the Luna. Thane quickly turned and scurried off behind some trees and appeared within a minute's time, in his human form, all dressed in a tuxedo. I was awestruck as he walked back onto the altar, and I wasn't able to form a single word as he grinned at me. Hey, beautiful. He winked at me and took my hands into his own. He flipped over my palm to ensure the cut was healed, and once he was sure I was all right, he turned his attention back to me, and his gaze didn't leave me once. I was all I was able to say in my gobsmacked state. Before Thane could get another word in, his father cut us off with a smile. Now you both may exchange your vows of acceptance as mates in Emery's lunar position, Carson instructed. In the moon goddess's name, I offer Thane Cole Blackwood, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Emery Ake in as my mate, and the Luna of the Blood Moon Pack. From this day until our last, you will rule by my side as my mate and my equal. I vow to protect you from anything that puts you and our family in danger, and to love you in every adversity that we face. Thane vowed. In the moon goddess's name, I, Luna Emery Aiken, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Thane called Blackwood as my mate in the position of the Luna of the Blood Moon Pack. From Tuesday until our last, I will rule by your side as your mate and your equal. I vow to protect you from anything that puts you and our family in danger and to love you in every adversity that we face. Everyone erupted into a round of applause and I felt contentment wash over me. When the noise died down, Carson began a human part of the ceremony. We gather here today to join in the marriage of Thane Blackwood and Anne-Marie in before the eyes of the moon goddess. On request of the bride, she wanted this affair to be short and sweet with just the exchanging of the vows. At that last statement, everyone gave a little laugh, but it was true. I made sure to let Carson know beforehand that I didn't want the fancy long sermon speech that was given at a typical human wedding. I just wanted to complete the werewolf part of the ceremony and just exchange vows for the human part. I would ask you to join hands, but I can see you already beat me to it. Carson laughed because Thane and I were holding each other's hands as if it were our lifeline. Mr. Blackwood, if you would like to start us off. Thane gave me a cheeky smile before going serious and clearing his throat. Emery, my mate, the love of my life, my bride, me everything. His cheesiness was remaking me melt. I know you forgave me for this already, but as we proceed to start a new chapter of our lives, I need to say it again. I'm sorry for having to take you away from your family and keeping the truth of being a wolf away from you when all you wanted was an answer. I'm sorry for anything that I said or did that hurt you in any way since you've gotten here, and I'm sorry for anything that I may do in the future that may hurt you, even though I promise that I would never intentionally cause you to hurt in any way, shape or form. But I'm not sorry that you are my mate or that you're either one standing here today, because it could never be anyone else. I wouldn't have it if it were anyone else. From the moment I met you in the woods, I knew without having to wait for a blood moon that you were mine and I was yours. I knew that you were going to be my wife, my mate and the mother of my children. I knew from that day that I would do anything, give up anything, just to be yours and to be by your side. Though I never expected you to knee me in my balls, cue the laughter, or threaten my manhood on the night of the ritual. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Your imperfections, humor, to my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Kindness and that smart brain of yours had me falling faster than I could have think. The way you drift off into concentration. Help our pack whenever they are in need, even if it is at your expense. The way you look at me as if you're trying to figure me out, even though you know me more than anyone. The way you smile for every little thing I do. The way you blush when I compliment you, and just every detail about you is what made me fall madly in love with you. I love you, Emery, and am happy you didn't reject me. He finished off and there were tears streaming down my eyes as everyone awed. My throat felt closed up from all the emotions, and then S-word strung a chord deep within me. He pulled out his handkerchief and passed it over to me, which I happily accept. I rubbed the tears away and tried to find my voice as Thane rubbed his thumbs on the back of each of my hands in assurance and comfort. I croaked out and he gave me a megawatt smile. To be quite honest, I don't know I can top that, but here I go. I shook my head to dispel my cloudiness and focused on Thane as I delivered my speech. You said you knew we were meant to be together when you saw me before the ritual. Well, I knew deep down that you were going to be a part of my life. I didn't know how or in what magnitude, but when I accidentally ran into a stranger in the middle of the forest, well, I knew destiny had a plan for us to meet again after that day. However, if someone told me months ago that I would be standing in front of my soulmate getting married today, I would have probably laughed and ran in the other direction, but I'm glad no one didn't, because now I know you. Even though we started off on the wrong foot and had a world of miscommunication, we managed to figure it out. Figure each other out. You're my fire, Thane, my rain, my breath, my soul, my everything. You don't ever need to apologize again for bringing me here, because you brought me to a whole new world. I have you here. I have a new family, new friends, a whole pack of family and friends at that. I may not have seen the value of all that when I got here, but you showed me what it feels to be alive. You taught me how to love, how to fight. Heck, you even showed me that fairy tales exist. He laughed, but he was getting emotional as I had. At first I didn't trust you because of my own prejudice about the beast and what I thought you were. But you showed me differently and showered me with nothing but love, and for the rest of our lives I want to reciprocate all that and more. I want this world and everything in it with you and your love, and I don't want to feel it with anyone else. Knowing you have been the best thing that has ever happened to me, but loving you has truly been what made me alive. I love you with every single that I have, and I would give you my last breath if it meant keeping you here longer. I want to spend the rest of my life by your side, Thane, running the pack and building a family, getting to know every detail about you, falling asleep in your arms and waking up to your smile. I want it all with you. I want to take care of you and hold you up when you're down. I want to consume your every thoughts as you do mine. I just want to love you. You don't ever need to apologize to me, love, because I know that you would never hurt me, and I vow I would never hurt you, for I too have fallen madly and deeply in love with you. I love you, Thane Blackwood. I brushed a few tears that escaped my eyes during my speech and looked at Thane to see his eyes dry and tears streaming down his cheek, even though I could tell he was trying to hold it in with his tough alpha appearance. I reached across us and wiped the tears away from his eyes. Now for the rings. Carson called as the next two little brothers, Thomas and Teddy, both ran up to the altar with the rings. Thomas came next to me with the ring I had for Thane, and Teddy went next to Thane. I reached down to Thomas, who opened the ring box for me, and pulled out the ring I bought for Thane. Thanks, Thomas. I gave him a high five. I turned back to Thane, who held his left hand out to me, and I slid the ring, that was molded to look like tree bark, onto his ring finger and vowed, I love you always. Thane then turned to Teddy and pulled out a beautiful ring. He held my left hand in his as he slipped my ring onto my finger. It was a beautiful gold ring with a pink oval-shaped diamond in the middle, which was surrounded by smaller diamonds. The ring itself also had the appearance of a tree bark, just as the neck. I love you always, he vowed when he finished. We both turned and looked at Carson impatiently, and he gave us both a grin as he declared, I now pronounce you Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood. You may now kiss the... But before he could finish, Thane pulled me into his arms and placed a deep kiss on lips. I would have depended if it was for the fact that we were standing in front of his dad and the rest of the pack. I heard a few whistles and blushed as we pulled away. Thane scooped me into his arms bridal style and whisked me down the aisle. I love you, wife. He chuckled as he swooped me off my feet and walked us down the aisle as everyone threw rose petals above us. It was quite the fairy tale wedding. Soon after the wedding ceremony, the pack transformed the clearing into a reception area. All the log seating were moved and replaced with dozens of long park benches that each had a fresh leaf centerpiece that ran down the entire table. Enthusiasm. In the middle of all the tables was a wooden and dance floor that was accompanied by the members of the pack who played the violin and piano beautifully. Thane and I had just cut our cake, which was a semi-naked layered cake with fresh flowers and berries. We sat at the head table enjoying the pack celebration. Thane had his arm wrapped around my shoulder as I leaned into him and had my hand resting on his thigh before he gently pulled away to look at me and held his hand out. May I have this dance? I stared at his hand, unsure since I had two left feet, and now that I had a pair of heels on, the chance of me falling was high. We've done this already, remember, he said in assurance. I nodded and grabbed hold of his hand as he pulled us both to our feet and walked us over to the empty dance floor. www. YouTube. Conwatch. V-68OF6C. The violin and piano players began playing a beautiful, melodic piece, and to my surprise a pack member grabbed a microphone and began singing as I placed one of my hand on Mena's shoulder and the other in his awaiting hand as one of his arms knit around my waist. He lifted me so that my feet were on his as he elegantly swept us around the dance floor. His piercing gaze on my eyes made my heart thump faster, and I felt such a deep connection to him. Thank you, I whispered to him. What for? His eyebrows crinkled in confusion. But all of this. This dance. Bringing me here. All of it, even if I said I wanted none of it. You know me when I don't even know myself. I smiled at him. He lowered his head and placed a gentle kiss on my lips. You don't need to thank me for anything, Mrs. Blackwood. And with that he dipped me, and from my low view I could see everyone staring at us lovingly and cowled and helped the blush that spread on my cheeks. He pulled me back up with a grin. Mr. Blackwood, you should be more careful with your wife. He let go of my hand and wrapped it around my waist, and I secured both arms around his shoulders as he pulled me closer. He placed his lips on my forehead. He'll keep you safe, but I can't say anything about tonight. I stared at him with wide eyes at his underlying suggestion and playfully his chest as the song was over. With one last brief kiss, Thane set me back on my feet and everyone erupted in an applause. Then S. father came up to me and his mom joined Thane in a dance. Official welcome to the family, Emery, Carson said as the other song began and we danced on. Thank you, Carson. It's an honor to be a part of the pack. I grinned. And the pack is humbled to have you as our Nulu alongside Thane. I could tell they all love you already. He looked around us at the surrounding crowd, which some have also joined us on the dance floor. I can only hope to be as half as great as an undo justice to being there for everyone. Oh, you sound like a loon already. Just remember not to burn yourself out, and if you're unsure of something, just trust your heart and your instincts. They're always the best judge. You don't ever need their approval in making decisions. Remember that and you will be golden. That means a lot, Carson. I know we can never replace your family, Emery, but I want you to consider us all as your family. If you ever need some good old dad advice, I'm here for you, and Anne is always there to give you her wise motherly advice. He said as the song finished and I felt tears brimming my eyes. Dad, I left you with my wife for a few minutes and you already made her cry. Thane scolded his father as he approached us with Anne. No, that's not it, Thane. I shook my head at him and wrapped my arms around Carson and thank you. Thank you again, Carson. Now, my child. Today's your wedding. You can't be shedding any tears. I pulled back and he wiped away that escaped me. Just remember what I said and that's all that matters to me. I will. It's just I really miss my family. But I'm glad I have you all. I looked at all three of them and saw Thane looking a bit worried, and pulled me into a hug next. We're always here for you, Emery, and welcome to the family, sweet child. You're now my daughter, so if you ever need anything, and I mean anything. She pulled away and looked at Thane. Even if that anything is to put my son in his place if he makes you sad. I'm here for you. Thank you, Anne. I smiled at her and felt much better knowing that I had a family here with me. With that, Anne Carson went on to join the others on the dance floor, and Thane cupped my chin and lifted my face so I was looking at him, and he kissed under both my eyes where there were just tears. I tried to make this day as perfect as I could, fit as I could, and deliver the one thing you actually wanted, he whispered in defeat. I placed both my hands on the sides of his face. Hey, no. Today was perfect all because of you. As I said before, I love you and that is all that matters to me in this moment. I'm just a bit homesick, but I'm not asking for miracles, Thane. You did your absolute best and you have no idea how much I appreciate that. Are you sure? I have never been more sure of anything in my life. You're my family now, and once you love me, I will forever be sure. I gave him a happy smile and kissed his lips. Let's get out of here then, so I can finally show you how much you mean to me. He took my hand in his and started to lead us away from everyone. But the party is still going on. I laughed even though I happily followed him. They wouldn't miss us. I'm sure they will. Then I'm pretty sure they'll know not to disturb us. He gave me a wink and swept me off my feet. Chapter 28, Secrets Finally Home. Thane says he opened the front door of our home with me still in his arms. Bridal style. As he crossed the threshold. That sounds nice. I smiled as he walked us all the way to our bedroom, which was littered with rose petals and candles. The door that led to the backyard was opened and allowed the cool night breeze inside. I took in the sight before me in complete awe. You did this. Spent the entire morning setting it up for you. He pecked my cheek. It's incredibly beautiful. Thank you. My heart was literally overflowing with love for this man. He set me down next to the bed and gave me a devilish smile. Should I give you a few minutes? I meekly nodded my head and appreciated the time to gather my bearings. Okay. But don't take off the dress, he whispered in my ear. As he walked out the door, I went into the bathroom and grabbed some wipes and face wash to remove all my makeup, which surprisingly held up after all my crying. I also removed the clip Jane gave me as well as all my jewelry except my ring, and kept it all secure. I splashed my face with some cold water to make myself realize what was about to happen. Thane and I were finally going to complete our mating, and he was going to mark me. Considering all this was my first time, I was completely nervous and suddenly very insecure about my body. I tried to shake off my nerves and took a few deep breaths before I walked back into the bedroom just as Thane came back with 2 glasses of champagne. Thank you. I really needed this. I gladly took the glass from him and hope it provided the much-needed liquid courage. I practically gulped the glass down as set it as Thane watched me with amused eyes. Are you sure you're ready for this? He asked me gently as he set his glass down after taking a sip. I gave him a smirk. I've been the one in this relationship trying to seduce you, Thane. I should be asking you that. He grabbed my arms and pulled me flush against him. Oh yeah, then why don't you show me what you got, love? But before I could even deliver, he plastered his lips to mine in a fierce and passionate kiss that left me breathless. I immediately granted him access and allowed him to explore my mouth as I tasted the fruitines of the champagne on his lips. He was intoxicating, and I wanted nothing more than to drown in him. My hand wandered to his suit jacket and iron buttoned it and pushed it off his shoulders as he stepped out of his shoes. I pulled my lips away from his to catch my breath, but he continued his attack as he moved to my neck and nibbled on the spot where he was supposed to mark me. My hands continued their nimble work on his shirt and practically ripped it open as the shirt buttons flew off and scattered around the room. Not paying heed to my hesitance as I ran my hands down his rock-hard abs until I reached the fly of his pants, but his hands quickly stopped my work. Let's take this slow, he pleaded as he looked into my eyes. I could see the passion and determination to mark me in his eyes, but he wanted to slow things down just to make sure I was all right and well taken care of. I gave him a smile. Not too slow now, Alpha. He let out a feral growl at my choice of words. He spun me around and gently undid my hair from its braid until it cascaded down my back. He moved his hands to wrap around me and placed his mouth near my ear. You look even more beautiful with your hair down. I cowled and felt the blush that formed on my cheeks as he turned me back to face him. And you look even better with your pants off. I bite my lip to suppress my smile as his cheeks turned pink, but he chuckled. He kissed my collarbones before removing the 2 lace pieces from my arms and callously threw them on the ground. He spun me back around and moved his hands to my back. He placed his mouth on my neck and nibbled the sensitive area as he took his sweet time unlacing the back of my dress. I cowled and felt the moan that escaped me from the sensual work on my neck as his hands trailed up and down my exposed back. I take it you're enjoying yourself, he whispered against my neck as he finished unlacing my dress. But before I could respond, his hands peeled my dress off my body. I promised to take care of you, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, he mumbled before he spun me around and laid me gently on the middle of the bed. Because my dress was strapless, I didn't have on a bra and I was suddenly very exposed, so I wrapped my arms around my chest and quickly hid myself from his view. He climbed over me on the bed and placed his hands on my own. Don't hide from me, love. I want to see all of you. Every inch and every curve. He gave me an assuring look and I gingerly removed my hands from concealing my upper body. I heard him let out a deep breath and a groan, and when I fixed my gaze back onto him, he was looking at me like he was about to get on his knees and worship me. Beautiful, he whispered before placing kisses all over my face. He then moved to my feet to remove my heels one at a time and then placed small kisses from my ankle all the way up my body. He took my lips into his again before he moved away and peppered kisses down my jaw and towards my neck. Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madame Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm, he asked with passion filled in his tone. I've been for months now, Mr. Blackwood. He chuckled against my neck. I love you, Mrs. Blackwood. He positioned his mouth at my neck and I felt his canines protrude as he licked the spot on my neck he was going to mark before his teeth sank into the flesh. I let out a scream at the searing pain that his canines initially caused, and I could feel his hands on my sides caressing me as a form of comfort. He retracted his canines and he licked the wound, and suddenly a wave of pleasure took over my entire body and all signs of pain vanished and I was consumed in ecstasy. I'm so sorry, love, he mumbled into my neck. I shook my head and tried to gather my words. No, don't be, because that was incredible. I felt his body shake as he chuckled. Soon after, our remaining clothing joined the rest on the floor. I woke up to sound of birds chirping outside and a heavy arm wrapped around me. I opened my eyes to see a peaceful-looking Thane asleep next to me. After he marked me last night, I felt completely in love with him and as if our souls were somehow stitched together in one. It was an unbreakable bond that was suddenly forged between us like a string attaching us together, and I suddenly felt how H.E.'s been describing he felt for me all this time. It was pure, unconditional love. It was happiness, sorrow, pleasure and pain all wrapped up into one. I cowed and stopped looking at him and thinking how in love I was with him. It terrified me and made me excited at the same time. It was like the last fragment of the wall I built around myself since I've forgotten he suddenly vanished without a trace of returning. Since he marked me, everything last night felt 10 times more meaningful than it would have if Thane didn't mark me. I stretched and felt the soreness between my legs as I was pretty sure Thane wanted to ensure got pregnant last night and him just going to leave it at that. Morning, love. Thane grinned at me without opening his eyes high. I whispered with a smile as he peered open his eyes with a loving gaze. Last night was amazing. I heard in my head and audibly gasped. How do you do that? I asked Thane. He smirked at me. When I marked you last night, it was your last little ritual for you to join the pack and one of the perks is mind communication. I quickly sat up and secured the sheets around me. Tell me, how to do it? He sat up as well, allowed the sheets to drop from his torso, and lay dangerously low on his waist as he leaned back on the headboard. Well, just think about anyone in the pack that you want to reach, and if you feel them in your mind, then mind link is open, and then you just keep thinking of that person or persons and what you want to communicate to them. He explained. I took a deep breath and thought of Thane as I looked him in the eye, and funny enough I felt his presence in my mind and thought, this is by far the coolest thing I have ever done. From his grinner's grin alone I knew I mind-linked him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Is that so? And to think all that moaning last night would have been Thane. I scolded out loud and he laughed at my embarrassment. Okay. We'll stop. But just to let you know that if you want to block anyone from mind-linking you, just try to envision a wall in your mind. It's a bit tricky at first and requires some practice, but you'll get it in no time. He promised. This is going to be so much easier to reach you. I said it in excitement. He leaned over to me and said, enough with mind linking. Where's my morning kiss? I rolled my eyes at his change of topic but happily obliged him and gave him a sweet kiss before pulling away in a wince since I moved a bit and felt some pain. He looked at me worriedly. Are you all right? What hurt? I gave him an assuring look. In fine, it's just that last night really made me a bit sore. I blushed at the explanation. Well, we've got to make a kid somehow. He winked. I knew you were only trying to get me pregnant. He raised his hands in defense. Well, that and I honestly cowed and keep my hands off you. Well, unlucky for you. You need to give me some time to recuperate. I scared him. He groaned. You're eager to make me suffer, but I don't want to hurt you anymore. He moved closer and kissed my head. Why don't you go take a shower and I'll go whisk up some breakfast? Sounds wonderful. I smiled as he got up stark naked from the bed and casually strolled to the closet for a pants and then left for the kitchen by sending me a wink when I couldn't take my eyes off him. When he was out of sight, I gingerly got off the bed and walked to the bathroom. I looked at my reflected in the mirror and admired the print of that S-canines on my neck which was permanently adhered to me. Despite my healing abilities, the mark from a mate was a sacred symbol that remained on the skin no matter what. On the other side of my neck, however, was covered in fading love bites. Thank goodness for super healing. After I brushed my teeth, I took a hot shower to help soothe the pain between my thighs and relax me. By the time I was finished, I could smell pancakes from the bedroom. As I exited the bathroom in a short, yellow sundress, I spotted some fresh wildflowers on the bed with a small note from Thane. It read as promised, hand-picked flowers every morning. The gesture touched my heart and was something I could easily get used to. I quickly noted the changed sheets that was then doing and walked out the bedroom and towards the kitchen with a smile on my face and the flowers in my hand. Thane was stacking the pancakes onto plates on the counter and looked at peace and full of joy. That's until I sat down and his expression turned into one of a poker face which he made when he was mind-linking with someone. It took a brief minute for whoever it was to relay the message, and when he looked at me, I felt a cold detachment from him and it scared me. Thane, what's wrong? I walked up to him and asked in concern. He stepped back and out of reach from me and said in a cold tone, "You were going to sacrifice one of my pack members to a hunter." Then, like a pile of bricks hitting me back to reality, I looked at the clock and saw it was after 2 in the afternoon, which meant I woke up later than expected, which means someone probably found Jake in the pack. And by the look on the N's face, I truly messed up.